Welcome to this episode of Reprint, brought to you by the Temple News. I'm Ariana Droz. I'm the podcast editor here at the Temple News. Today, I'll be talking with the co-sports editors, Sienna Conahan and Colin Schofield, about the basketball preview ahead of the season that will be starting soon. And then later, we'll hear from TTN freelancer Rachel Kealy about her opinion column on the resurgence of analog in a digital media landscape. But first, a message from our sponsor. Philly security officers keep us safe on and off campus. Making as low as $16.25 an hour, the primarily black workers are fed up with employer-allied universal security and are ready to go on strike for a livable wage for themselves and their families. Join the movement. Post your message of support with hashtag Stand for Security. 32BJ, when we fight, we win. SEIU 32BJ has a dispute with Allied Universal only, not with any other employer. This is not a request to cease work or deliveries. Hello, Colin and Sienna. Thank you for joining me on Reprint. I know this isn't your usual podcast. I mean, I guess this is how Jacob feels, but I know a lot less about sports than him. So we're getting ready to start basketball season. What day does that start?
So the women's team actually tipped off last night and picked up a win in their first game, and then the men's kicks off tomorrow night in the Liacouras Center.
Sweet. So I took a look at the basketball preview, and it looks like there's been a lot of changes in the off season. So yeah, what changes have been made to our basketball teams, and what can we expect to see from those shifts this season?
Yeah, so I'll start with the women's team. They really focused on, they retained a lot of this roster from last year. They added 5 new players, and the main focus was front court depth and rebounding, and another guard or two. Dynerson really wants to play fast and up-tempo on offense and then play really physical defense and really kind of working like an inside-out type of game with, front court, three-point shooting. And so the main addition there was Sanaya Craig from Jacksonville as a transfer. She came over as one of the best rebounders in the country and had 15 rebounds in Temple's opening night win on Monday. And she led the Atlantic Sun, her conference, in rebounds and rebounds per game last year with 11.4 and 332 respectively. And she's going to really improve the rebounding for a team that struggled at times last year to rebound the ball and ultimately cost them possessions, cost them points, cost them games. The other big addition, the front court also added Anastasia Bulanova, a freshman from Russia. She was inactive for the first game with a knee injury, but when she's healthy, she might also play as well. Chloe Miller, a transfer from East Carolina, played, I think, 7 minutes or 12 minutes, but she made an impact off the bench. She's really kind of lanky and has some more size. And then true freshman Ariana Merity as well was added to the front court. So really focused on beefing up that front court. And then Brianna Mead was added to the back court as another kind of smaller guard who can shoot the three and also handle the ball. And just adds kind of another depth piece off that bench. And that depth was used with those transfers and returners. And Dynerson played 11 players in the season opening win of a game that wasn't a blowout. So she still utilized that depth. So we're going to see a lot of the depth that helps out with rebounding and then also kind of help them play their style of basketball they want to play on the women's team.
The men's team had a lot more turnover than the women's. They only retained 4 players, only 2 starters, in Aiden Tobiasen and Babatunde Duradola, who were both freshmen last year. They're expected to take bigger steps this year. And then they added 11 new players this year, so basically a whole new team.
Is that normal for basketball?
It's becoming more common with NIL and rev share and that kind of stuff. But 10 years ago, this would never have been seen. Temple is one of either 2 or 3 teams in the American Conference that returned any starters, or more than 1 starter. And the most that returned more starters, they only had 3 returning. So very fresh team, kind of in the whole conference, honestly, on the men's side. But for the men's side, M. Fisher is looking to play stronger defense. They struggled a lot last year at defense, so he added some strong defenders like Darian Ford, CJ Hines. Aiden Tobiasen was strong defender last year, so those guys are looking to help defend. Messiah Gilliard was added to help rebound. He was the leading rebounder in the country for a guard last year. Jemai Felt was added for another big alongside Babatunde Daradola. So it's basically just like a whole new team for the men's side. They're looking to play good defense, create turnovers, and capitalize in transition.
I would love to hear about more of like your side of the process of putting together the basketball preview. So like what parts of the preview are your favorite, and what were the best parts of putting it together for you guys?
It's a great question. I mean, I think my favorite part of the basketball preview is being able to highlight, I think, the new players on the team. We tried to highlight, so we did previews for men's and women's basketball. We ran the women's one a little bit early, so it got out before their first game. We ran a new faces story for men's and women's in an effort to kind of introduce people to the new players, especially for the men's team with so many new players coming in and out every year. Like, we want to give readers the opportunity to learn about who is new, who might make an impact. And then we tried to do 4 profiles, 2 players who were coming back, 2 players who were new to the rosters. And I think my favorite part was just being able to introduce those new players. We talked about Sanaya Craig for the women's team, and then Jemai Felt for the men's team. And just giving a reader the chance to kind of learn about them, not just as basketball players, but as human beings as well. Like the Jemai Felt story done by Ryan Mack, who's one of our copy editors, the old sports editor, really went in depth on Jemai Felt about he faced injuries the last couple of years. He had a deep personal connection with the associate head coach, Michael Huger, from when they were both at Bowling Green. So just kind of being able to do stories like that, get to knowing these players kind of beyond the game of basketball, and give readers a sense of who they're going to be watching as people, not just as players, is my favorite part.
Yeah, I'm sure that also really helps with like team spirit for the Temple community, because that's something that every year we kind of lack, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite is also the profiles, I think, but I'm going to go on the flip end. I liked the returner profiles. I feel like heading into a new season, a lot of the talk is always around who's new. So it was cool to do the profile for the men's side on Babatunde Daradola, and then the women's side, Tristan Taylor. I think it was just cool to highlight what they've already done at Temple, and like how they feel about Temple, how they feel about their careers, and like what they want to continue doing at Temple.
Cool. Like about the profiles, I picked out 2, which were Tristan Taylor and Sanaya Craig. I was just wondering if you want to talk a little bit about like why you chose them. Tristan is a returning player, and then Sanaya is new, as you mentioned. So maybe like why you chose them, and what they're each bringing to the table this season in terms of how they're playing.
Yeah, so Sanaya Craig, like, I kind of talked about her with kind of what she brings as a new player, but it was just that rebounding aspect, and that, you know, she's going to make a difference on this team. She was brought in to rebound, and that's a point where they struggled last year. And so I feel like it was important to highlight how she was going to help rectify the rebounding issues that Temple had faced at points last year. And, you know, we really dove deep into that. She talked about how like she feels like rebounding is more than a stat, and how it like truly impacts the game on both ends beyond just the score sheet. And so I kind of went into that one, just kind of looking at how her rebound is going to impact the team. And then Tristan Taylor was one that I really wanted to do because she is one of 2 players who have been consistent players for 3 years for Temple. This is a team with no seniors, the women's basketball team. So she kind of has the most experience on the team and has really stepped into a role as a leader. And that's evident in practice. That was even evident at points last year. Like, she was kind of that like unspoken leader on the court, and now she's becoming that spoken leader off the court as well. And she's just fully, you know, enthralling herself in that role of being like the head person on the court and off the court. And she also talked about wanting to be more of a scorer, and she did that and scored. She was the leading scorer with 19 points in their season opening win. But it was just, she was kind of someone who looked as a returner, like, okay, she played well last year, and now with, you know, open minutes and open points, she's someone who really might step into a role as a leader and a scorer, and someone who could make a major impact on this team.
For sure. So yeah, guys, like, what are your predictions or expectations for the season for each of these teams based on the preview and what they're showing so far?
My prediction for the men's team, I had them going, I think 16-15. It's so tough to judge a team with 11 new players. Like, it's nearly impossible. You're never going to know who's going to mesh well together, what lineups are going to work well together. They have an easy non-conference schedule. I think the conference schedule might trip them up. So I had 16 and 15, and I had them losing in the first round of the conference tournament. And then the women's team, I had going 22 and 9, I think. And they've won 20 games back-to-back years, but lost in the semifinals each year. And the big thing for them is getting over that semifinal hump. So I think they're going to do that. I think they're going to get to the American Conference Championship game, but I think they're going to fall short in that round. So those are my predictions for both teams.
I think I also had the men's team going 16 and 14, kind of the same thing as Colin. Like, I really don't know what to expect with such a whole new team, and based on some like inconsistencies last year, like it's hard for me to be like super optimistic. So I kind of just like am thinking like the middle of the ground. For the women's team, I have them going 21 and 10, and same as Colin, I have them losing in the finals of the American Conference tournament. I definitely think they can get back there, but that hump has stopped them before. So
Thank you guys for coming on and talking with me. I got to be part of the sports team for a day, so that was fun. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
Thank you for coming to sit with me today to talk about your column, which was an opinion column on this print edition, and it's called "Is Digital Dead?" Do you want to summarize it and just talk a little about like what inspired you to write this, or what motivated you?
Yeah, of course. So I originally came up with the idea because I realized that myself included and a lot of my friends had been collecting vinyl for the past like few years. I want to say since like COVID, since 2020, and a lot of like Gen Z people had kind of picked up listening to music on more like physical formats like vinyl. A lot of my friends have CD players and CD collections. Even like some of my friends who keep it in their cars, like they have like expansive CD collections. And so I kind of had an idea of how like this new kind of resurgence of like AI and like such a reliance of people on like a digital world has kind of pushed younger generations into reverting to more physical formats of consuming media, even through things like DVDs, physical books, and print newspapers.
Cool. I mean, like
Yeah.
the one that we have here. Very cool. So let's delve into this topic that you mentioned in the column. It's the idea of digital fatigue. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that's kind of applying to what you wrote?
Yeah, so basically digital fatigue is kind of this phenomenon where there's such a heavy reliance on using everything and consuming everything through digital formats, especially through like social media. Generative AI is a big part of it. And the fatigue aspect of it is like a lot of younger people and even just like populations in general are really growing tired of having such a heavy reliance on social media, on AI, and even on just like the internet in general. Like even through a lens of like cultural, social, and academic settings, like we are so dependent on the internet. And like even a few weeks ago when Canvas shut down for like a day, it was like a widespread panic of like every college across the United States. So it's kind of just expanding on this idea of how people are growing tired of how there's such a reliance on the digital in today's society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that idea kind of reminds me of something that I saw, and it was this post about someone saying how people don't even want to use Kindles anymore, because we're just tired of having screens in our faces.
Yeah.
So I feel like that kind of definitely just is all wrapped up in that digital fatigue kind of thing. Because it gets tiring. It's bad for your eyes.
Yeah, it's straining.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just want to talk about like who you talked to while you were researching. Who were you looking to interview? Who did you interview? And how did that help you write this piece?
So my editor Bradley actually reached out to me, and my opinion editor as well, and told me that maybe I should interview some film professors about the resurgence of DVDs. And so I interviewed this one film professor, Dr. Chris Cagle, And he gave me a lot of information on how, like, a lot of his students do still have, like, DVD collections. And I asked him, like, when was the last time you bought a DVD? And he had the week before. So it kind of did help me see how analog media is still vibrant in communities that value, like, film and art and music. And then for students, I interviewed one student in my American literature class about whether he prefers physical books or like ebooks or audiobooks. And the two people that I interviewed on that topic, who were both students, both preferred physical media, which I think honestly kind of goes for most of people who like enjoy reading, because the answers that I got were mostly dependent on like, oh, I like marking up my books, like I like annotating them and kind of making them very personal to me. And I feel like you just can't really do that with like an ebook or an audiobook.
Yeah, so let's, dive deeper into this whole idea of analog way of living. I think in your piece, you were kind of at the conclusion suggesting that young adults should or are wanting to push towards a more analog way of living. So my question is, do you have any insight on how maybe we could push this movement or what that might look like in the coming years?
So I definitely think that AI is a big part of it. I wrote about this a little bit in my article. I didn't really stress it that heavily, but I do think that that's a big reason why people are kind of pushing back against the idea of like a completely digital world. And kind of this death of like creativity in younger generations. And so I feel like the biggest action that like we can take, Gen Z can take, and anyone can take is just kind of just push back against generative AI in creative fields as like a completely generative source. Like I saw this post a couple weeks ago where somebody like asked their friend if they had read a book, and they said, or no, somebody like gave their friend a book to read. And they came back like a week later, like saying that they read it, but by read it, they meant that they put it into like ChatGPT and read a summary of it, and like then claimed that they read the book. So I feel like it's just the biggest action that anybody can take against being becoming completely reliant on a digital society is to create things. And I see this a lot through the resurgence of zines. I know like a lot of my friends who are like in the photography community or like even in like the skating community, like zines have been a thing for so long, and like that's actually becoming more and more relevant instead of like dying out like we see a lot of forms of physical media do. So I think creation and creativity in general is just inherently like a rebellion against digital society.
Absolutely. Let's expand on that too. Like what are some of the benefits of maybe putting down the screen and prioritizing interaction with like physical media?
So the few students that I talked to said that having something like tangible made like a connection more real and more humane, and kind of just like there's this relationship that you form with a physical item, like through annotating a book, through having like a collection that you can't really do digitally. And so I feel like having those physical items and having those relationships with them is super important in an era where like everything feels so disconnected because it's through a screen.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good answer.
Thank you.
So do you think after researching and writing this piece that you could answer your own question, is digital dead? And do you think we're on the verge of a bigger resurgence of analog media in the face of this rapidly developing technology? Like something new is coming out every day, every year, every month. Yeah, so what do you think?
First of all, that's a really good question, and I love that question. But is digital dead? Honestly, I hope so. But I feel like you can't know, and my short answer is no. Like, I don't think it ever will be dead. I do think there are so many good things and like reliable technology and good tools that come out of the internet. But I also think that a balance of physical media and reliance on the digital is essential in today's society, because you really can't get rid of it completely. Like, as hard as we try and as much as we want to, like, it's here and it's not going anywhere. But I mean, I definitely think that it can be a better tool for physical media instead of like a replacement of it, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah. Great answer. I mean, I agree. We kind of like, I don't think we knew what it was going to become. When they were like making all of this technology, they were just like, we need to do better. And they just did not know what was going to happen.
And now we did better. But here we are.
At what cost?
At what cost?
Is there anything in your piece that you want to expand on that you haven't had the chance to, or like a message overall that you have?
I guess something just that I really learned from the piece is through like talking to different people about it, is just how temporary digital media is. Like, I wrote a part on how Spotify, like, artists have removed their music from Spotify, and like even Netflix, how rights are regulated on such a temporary basis. Like, something that's there one day might not be there the next. And I didn't realize how big of an issue that is for like just object permanence in younger generations, and like how having like a physical DVD or a physical book, like that item is unchangeable. And I feel like that's so important in terms of like art and creativity, and just having like the ability to access it like years into the future.
So that's all I have, but thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Reprint. You can find these stories and many more on our website at www.temple-news.com, and you can keep up to date on all things TTN on our social media at The Temple News. And we'll catch you next time on the next episode of Reprint.